The fate of Centauri Prime was one of Babylon 5's biggest loose ends. We got a glimpse of Londo's fate earlier in the series, but the full circumstances were never fleshed out on screen. But thanks to official novels and spin-offs, we can get the full picture of what happened. Let me tell you the story of the fate of Centauri Prime after Babylon 5. When we wrapped up the series, things were looking grim for the Centauri. Their planet had been bombed flat by the Narn and the Drazi. The Republic was saddled with massive reparations, and they were isolated as a pariah state. This was all thanks to the Drakh, followers of the Shadows who sought revenge against the younger races for causing their masters to leave.
It's over because we've decided it's over. Now get the hell out of our galaxy!
They controlled the Centauri leader through a creature called a Keeper, and through him, they manipulated the Centauri and the Alliance into a war neither of them wanted. At the end of the series, the Keeper passed on to Londo. He becomes doomed to be the Drakh's puppet as they plot the next stage of their plan to destroy the Interstellar Alliance. And this is where we left things. We kind of know how some of this ended up. In War Without End, we get a glimpse of the future where we see the deaths of Londo and Jakar, and Centauri Prime once again in flames. But we're not told the full circumstance of what's going on. So how do we get from A to B? Well, the tale is told in 3 novels, all based on outlines by show creator J. Michael Straczynski, and all of them considered totally canonical. The story takes a lot from 2 clear inspirations. One is interwar Germany. The Centauri Republic is a state beaten down by defeat in war and crippling reparations. Resentment leads to authoritarians taking power and a build to yet another war. The other inspiration is the old BBC drama I, Claudius, which follows the plots and intrigues in the court of Rome's first emperors, all told from the perspective of Claudius, a stuttering klutz who's smarter than he looks and rises to become the unlikely ruler of Rome. So where were we? Londo is under the control of the Drakh. They keep him in line by unleashing unbearable pain through the Keeper and threatening people he cares about. They've also planted bombs all over Centauri Prime as an added threat to keep him on side. But when it comes to carrying out their plans, they seek out a more willing tool. In I, Claudius, the Emperor Tiberius becomes this reclusive figure who's barely seen in public. This allows Sejanus, the leader of the Praetorian Guards, to usurp power. He's played here by some obscure Shakespearean actor. On Centauri Prime, this man is Durla, a man of infinite ambition who wants a return to glory for his people. He's kind of like a younger Londo, but without any of his redeeming qualities. Rather than control Durla directly, the Drakh cultivate his ambitions, occasionally planting ideas in his head that he thinks are his own, a useful idiot to further their plans. So, with Londo on the sidelines, it very much becomes a story about Vir. When we first met Londo's aide on Babylon 5, he was nervous, stuttering, bumbling, but he was always Malari's moral compass, the angel on his shoulder. In the books, we see him go through a series of ordeals that toughen him up for the bigger challenges that await him. The first starts with a visit to Centauri Prime for a gala at the royal court. A drunken Londo takes Vir aside. He rambles about an ancient emperor called Kran, and a Centauri on Babylon 5 called Rem Lammas. Vir leaves quite confused, but sure of 2 things. That Londo isn't able to talk freely, and that he was trying to tell him something. Back on Babylon 5, Vir looks up Kran. The emperor had sought to inspire the nobility to have more empathy with the lower orders, but as he took the aristocrats on a tour of the slums, he was assassinated by a disgruntled commoner. Vir then looks up Rem Lammas, and discovers he was last seen in Down Below. Vir puts up his hood and ventures into the slums of the station. After wandering around for a while, he's on the verge of giving up, when he hears a commotion down the hall. Now, President Sheridan is wrapping up his time on B5 with a big push to clean up Down Below. He's been urging the ambassadors to get their homeworlds to repatriate their citizens, and put up funds towards improving the area. And here he is, in Down Below, taking the envoys on a tour so they can see the deprivation firsthand. Out of the corner of his eye, Vir then spots Rem Lammas, brandishing a weapon, and he puts it all together. Lammas looks like he's in some kind of trance, so Vir is able to approach him and tackle him before he can kill Sheridan, a bizarre bug-like creature that emerges from the unconscious Centauri. But before it can get to Vir, it's destroyed by a technomage. These guys know what's going on with the Drakh and Centauri Prime, but they aren't supposed to intervene directly. So they decide to use Vir as their instrument. They whisk him off to investigate unusual happenings on a remote planet on the Rim. Durla has ordered archaeological digs as part of a big jobs program, but a huge number of workers are mysteriously going missing. Sure enough, they're unearthing shadow technology, namely a planet killer. The Technomages use their technological illusions to help Vir infiltrate the Drakh base where they're reverse engineering planet killers in order to build more of them. Since they aren't supposed to act directly, they have Vir press the button to destroy the place. The original planet killer that was dug up on the planet leaves before they're done, setting the stage for the TV movie A Call to Arms. The Drakh plan to use the planet killer to destroy Earth and unleash a virus on Mimbar. When Sheridan thwarts their plans, the virus is unleashed on Earth instead, leading us into the storyline of the spin-off show Crusade. Vir's third ordeal involves a doomed romance. One of Londo's ex-wives shows up on the station. Marielle was the cynical seducer who tried to kill Londo in the episode Soulmates. She and Vir get involved, and as far as Vir is concerned, everything is great, until the Technomages reveal to Vir that she's a spy for the Centauri government. Marielle has just been using him to get access to his diplomatic contacts. Even worse, she mocks him behind his back. Something about only being able to get up to 3. The other ambassadors don't know exactly what this means, but it sounds bad. Vir is enraged, but he also sees an opportunity. What if they can turn Marielle and use her to find out more about what's happening on Centauri Prime? Galen, the Technomage from Crusade, tells him yes, it is possible to make Marielle fall in love with him.
Every Technomage knows the 14 words that will make someone fall in love with you forever.
Vir gives him the go-ahead, telling himself it's necessary for the greater good, but knowing deep inside it's also because she hurt him and he's bitter. The Technomage magic works, and Marielle is now head over heels with Vir and will do anything he asks. But there's a catch. Galen decides now is the time to tell Vir that this condition isn't reversible. She's now stuck like this forever. Clearly it suited Galen not to say this earlier, but Vir is now racked with guilt over what he's done. The end result of all these ordeals is a tougher and more competent version of Vir. He still appears to many to be a stammering bumbler, but now it's almost entirely an affectation, to put his enemies off their guard. His years as a diplomat have taught him tact and misdirection. His life experience has made him sharper, more decisive, and willing to do unsavory things for the greater good. So, what's Londo been up to all this time? Well, after the failed assassination attempt on Sheridan, the Drakh are enraged. They know he had something to do with it. They subject him to terrible pain, and force him to make amends.
Londo?
This is when Londo travels to Mimbar and delivers a present for David, the child of Sheridan and Delenn, not to be opened until his 16th birthday. His very own keeper.
Now we await the passage of years. We are very patient.
Londo has no choice, but dooming a child to this fate sickens him, making him all the more determined to turn on the Drakh when the chance arises. Some years pass, and we flip perspectives to the Interstellar Alliance. President Sheridan is getting intel that the Centauri are secretly building up their military, so he assembles a delegation to visit Centauri Prime to investigate. There's Michael Garibaldi, the corporate oligarch who used to be Sheridan's intelligence chief. There's G'Kar, the former Narn ambassador who's now something of a spiritual leader to his people. And there's Lou Welsh. This guy used to be Garibaldi's right hand in security on Babylon 5. Since then, he's become a private investigator, his incredible infiltration skills having earned him the nickname The Ghost. The plan is for Garibaldi and G'Kar to attract all the attention, while Welsh quietly does the real digging unnoticed. When they arrive, Durla arranges a trip for the Alliance delegates to inspect a factory, which they're obviously showing them because there's nothing to find there. Welsh feigns sickness and stays behind. Now, years earlier, Welsh was working security on Cygnus 4 when he came across a crashed Drakh ship. Inside, he found a piece of tech which he calls his invisibility cloak. It's the secret to all his success in the years since. Welsh waits till nightfall and slips on the cloak. He snoops around and follows a group of young Centauri known as Prime candidates, Durla's personal clique of fanatical nationalists. He tracks them to a meeting house and slips inside. There, he gains access to a computer and uncovers proof that the Centauri do indeed have a secret weapons program, building ships and weapons on the sly. Suddenly, he looks up to find a Prime candidate looking right at him. The cloak has failed. The Centauri goon then proceeds to beat Lou to death. All the while, the Drakh who turned off the cloak watches from the shadows. The next day, Welsh's body turns up. Garibaldi is enraged. He's going to go back to Sheridan and recommend going in all guns blazing against the Centauri. That's when Vir shows up at the morgue. He doesn't want Centauri Prime obliterated, so he pleads with Garibaldi to let him deal with things quietly. G'Kar helps cool Garibaldi down, but the chief won't play ball. Unless, Whoever killed Lou gets what's coming to him. The next night, the Prime candidates are gathering as usual when they run into Vir in the street. The bumbling fool has booze on his breath and is talking nonsense. But when Vir mentions the killing of Welsh, the look on one of their faces gives away his guilt right away. Vir doesn't appear to react, and heads off into the night after giving one of them a hearty slap on the back. In the meeting house, they discuss what happened. Vir may need to be eliminated. That's when one of them notices something stuck on his back. When Garibaldi hears about the attack on the Prime candidates, he understands that Vir has given him what he asked. Centauri Prime is spared for now. As for Vir, he's all in on this now. By this point, the Technomages have helped him find out all about the Drakh, and how Londo is being controlled. He gathers like-minded dissidents he's picked up on his adventure so far. Operating in a disused subterranean tunnel of the capital, they form a literal underground resistance movement. Here we get another time jump as we go to the third and final book of the series. The Centauri Republic is now launching attacks on border worlds, testing the waters. The members of the Alliance are inclined to appease them. Years of peace and prosperity have made them reluctant to go to war. Sheridan is aware of all this. Garibaldi has excellent intel from Centauri Prime, but isn't telling him how he's getting it. But for now, there isn't much they can do. Vir and his rebels have been slowing the Centauri arms buildup. Mariel has been sent to seduce and marry Durla, providing the resistance with a vital source of intelligence. Ships are sabotaged and arms depots are destroyed. But despite all this, a huge Centauri fleet has been assembled in secret, and is poised to strike. Durla is getting increasingly paranoid the more powerful he gets. He ends up turning on the nobility that helped put him in power. There's wave after wave of purges on those he deems disloyal. But Vir survives them all. The bumbling fool who's no threat to anyone. Durla is backed by the military, but he's wary about them taking credit for the big campaign to come. So he arranges that the go order for the big attack on the Alliance will only come from him, not the generals. And he hears whispers about the influence Mariel has over him. People saying she has him wrapped around her finger. So to silence this, he starts mistreating her. Her black eyes a way of proving to everyone who is in charge. But despite growing murmurs of discontent, the population has been whipped into a nationalist frenzy, and are all in favor of getting back at the Alliance. Great public works projects promise a return to glory, among them a giant building in the capital. It's probably got a really cool, inspiring name in the Centauri language, but in English it's called the Tower of Power. Durla runs his government from here, but the upper floors are off limits. Everyone's been told it's empty space for later expansion. The next major development happens at an event held at the tower. Londo is cajoled into appearing on the balcony with Durla to address the public. Suddenly, a shot rings out. Londo's head is grazed and he's hustled to safety by his guards. The security forces apprehend a rather tall Centauri, who removes a changeling net that was disguising his identity. It's G'Kar. He's the one who's been spying for the Alliance all this time, but it turns out G'Kar is not the assassin. He'd been trying to stop a member of the nobility from killing Durla, an effort that caused the shot to miss. Durla wants G'Kar killed. It's a crime for unauthorized aliens to be on Centauri Prime. But, of course, Londo steps in. It'd be rather ungrateful to execute the man who saved your life, now wouldn't it? So a compromise is reached. G'Kar stays at the palace. He's treated well, but he is a prisoner. Every week, he meets Londo for dinner. And for a year, they talk philosophy, culture, politics. Everything except why Londo is keeping him around. G'Kar gets the impression that Mollari could get him off-world if he wanted to, but he's hanging on to him for some unknown purpose. As the date of the Centauri attack on the Alliance approaches, the Drakh finally play their trump card. As they see it, the Interstellar Alliance is still fragile, and Sheridan and Delenn are what holds it together. Remove them, and it'll shatter. The Keeper on Minbar awakens and attaches itself to David Sheridan. It had been whispering to him in his dreams for years, and now it's finally in control. David has a run-in with his father as he sneaks out. The president is knocked out, but not before seeing the Keeper. When Sheridan comes to, he, Delenn, and Garibaldi investigate David's room for signs of clues as to what happened. It's been trashed, but Delenn is still able to put it all together.
I am told that it contains water, taken from the river that flowed past the very first palace, 2,000 years ago.
The urn is smashed, but it's dry. There was never water inside. With that, they know the Centauri are responsible. A little bit later, we go back to Babylon 5. Vir is preparing to head back to Homeworld when there's a ring at the door. Garibaldi storms in and throws Vir up against a wall. To his surprise, he finds a knife at his throat, and Vir staring back at him with no trace of fear in his eyes. They both back off, and Garibaldi explains what happened to David. Vir decides now is the time to tell Garibaldi about the Drakh, Londo, everything. But he urges Garibaldi not to let his world be destroyed. Garibaldi returns to Mimbar, trying to figure out what to do, arriving only to find Sheridan and Delenn have already left, to hand themselves over to the Centauri. So, now we have Sheridan and Delenn imprisoned, war is about to break out, all seems lost. Durla appears before the people, the event projected to homes across the planet. He's finally ready to launch the big attack. Suddenly, the upper floors of the tower explode. These were the areas that Durla had told everyone were off limits. Debris starts raining from the skies, but it's not just debris, it's bodies. Alien bodies. With that, the Drakh are revealed to the whole planet. A hologram then appears. It's Vir, communicating with the whole planet with a little help from his technomage buddies. He tells the people everything, the Drakh manipulations of Durla, of the whole planet, and calls on the Centauri to rise up against their occupiers. He's then cut off, but not before the truth is revealed. A Drakh ship descends from the skies, and kill squads head to the underground sewers, searching for the rebels. But Vir and his cohorts are prepared. The Drakh are ambushed and slaughtered. Durla and his cabinet flee to the palace. His ministers are shaken. They can't deny the evidence of their own eyes. The war will have to wait till they figure out what's going on. But Durla is not going to let his destiny be derailed. He picks up a weapon and kills all of them. Marielle comes to see what the commotion is, and is horrified at what she finds. Durla beckons her over to share this great moment, the moment when the Centauri will finally be returned to glory. She comes close to him, then attacks, unleashing fury built up from years of abuse. They struggle and both end up falling to their deaths. With Durla dead, there's now only one person who can order the attack on the Alliance. The Drakh appear before Londo. They have no choice but to flee the planet for now, but they will be back. They tell Londo he must order the assault. He must order the deaths of Sheridan and Delenn. Londo sees an opening here. He tries to bargain with them. He thinks the Drakh can be reasoned with, believing that revenge can't be all that they care about. But he's wrong. To show they're serious, the Drakh detonate 1/3 of the bombs under Centauri Prime, an atrocity they want Londo to blame on the Alliance. From here, it plays out as it did in War Without End. Londo drinks heavily to put the Keeper to sleep.
It cannot hold its liquor, you see.
And arranges the escape of Sheridan, Delenn, and David. But in order to make sure they get away, he asks G'Kar to kill him.
We have unfinished business between us, G'Kar.
But the Keeper awakes. Londo and G'Kar die together, but under circumstances neither of them could ever have imagined in their youth. Vir ends up becoming Emperor. He's a hero for exposing the Drakh conspiracy and leading the rebellion. And he restores friendly relations with the Alliance. The massive Centauri fleet then joins forces with the White Stars to attack the Drakh, who take enormous losses and are forced back into the shadows. The final loose end is David Sheridan. Despite the best efforts of Dr. Franklin, the Keeper can't be removed. His best guess is that it's telepathically linked to whichever Drakh created it. Sometime later, it's nighttime on Centauri Prime, and Emperor Vir is preparing for bed. Out of the darkness emerges Shivkala, the leader of the Drakh that Londo had always been dealing with. The Drakh, quite rightly, blame Vir for their downfall and want him dead. As always, revenge is what drives them, but that makes them predictable. Suddenly, out of a closet, Michael Garibaldi jumps out, guns ablazing. The Drakh dies, and light years away, David Sheridan wakes up his old self. Centauri Prime is rebuilt, and among the great public works is a new city gate for the capital. And on either side of the gate are giant statues of Londo and G'Kar. Mortal enemies who became something like friends, their destinies forever intertwined. A symbol of hope for the future of the revitalized Centauri Republic. So what do you think? Should we have got some of this in the show? Did this all work out the way you expected it to? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, I'll be seeing you.